Bishop, good to see you again. The world seems to be on the brink of war so often these days, especially with these threats from terrorism and radical Islamists. What are we talking about here? Is this something that should worry us, or is this what you see happening in the Middle East? Is it basically a civil war among factions over there?
Well, you could say it's a civil war, but it goes a lot deeper than just two factions fighting against one another. The world today is a village, and there are implications for our own country because of these acts of violence. We went to Iraq and Afghanistan to stop terrorism having a base of operation. That was certainly part of the reasoning. Now we see that this base of operation is becoming strong again and possible. Once the rebels get a hold of sources of income like the central bank that they did and the oil fields, well, they're going to keep funding terrorism, and that terrorism is going to come to this country. I think that's happened already. We saw how it happened in 9/11. We need to be aware of that. We can't isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. The world is smaller today than ever was. So it does affect us. You know, we can put our heads in the sand and say, "Oh, somehow it's not our fight." Well, not your fight, but it's your problem. Put it that way.
Yeah, well, I know you're a religious leader and you're not a politician, but do you have an opinion on whether or not we should have stayed there longer than we did? Did we pull out our troops too quickly? Were they not ready to defend themselves?
Yeah.
Well,
it's probably more complicated than saying yes or no to that. Clearly, we were there to help people have freedom in that country. People have to want freedom. They're very divided. They have to have the will to do this. There were mistakes made along the way of how we dealt with the various factions there. It was not easy. You had divisions between the Muslims. You had Christians as a minority there. And one thing I believe, just as my opinion, is that when we disbanded the army that was there in Iraq, we made a big mistake. We needed to purge the army maybe of the people that were guilty of all kinds of atrocities, but not having a trained army, not having people who had a stake, but dispersing them in the population, just were planting seeds of future violence. So I think that was a critical tactical mistake, from my point of view at least.
This talk about a new caliphate being formed over there and established under Sharia law, and this becomes a religious state. How do we approach something like that? I mean, we definitely do not like to see a religion become the religion of the state. And how do we protect people's freedom? Has the Christian church disappeared totally from that area
Practically
of the world?
so. I mean, it's been reduced certainly by half or less, and people can't survive there. You know, this is part of the problem, and this is happening with Islamic terrorists and militants where they're going. And we saw what happened in Kenya, where the people said, well, recite the Quran. If they can't, well, then they're shot. We've seen the martyrdom in Syria of the Jesuit priest that was there taking care of people in homes. I received a letter from the bishop in Syria, one of the Maronite bishops that corresponds with me, saying that there was a tragedy and that he was killed because he was there as a chaplain to the Christians that remained and to others. In the compound where he was taking care of Muslims and Christians, and they're the ones who buried him without any mass, without anything, but they buried him, and he certainly was a martyr to the faith because he was trying to help people.
Sure. How are we trying to cope with it here in our own diocese? Do we have a Muslim, Christian, Catholic dialogue?
We do, and in fact, we're just invited to the end of Ramadan, the Iftar it's called, by one of the Muslim groups in the diocese. Muslims have a very good religious sense, but you're talking about people that have taken a religion, hijacked it, and made it for their own purposes. Now, this is the period of fasting. This is Ramadan, and they're conducting war. That's not what they're supposed to be doing according to their religion, but this is what's happening there. So they really are disregarding their own religious tenets. So we can't blame it on Islam, but we're talking about militants who are using the religion and misinterpretation of certain passages that they have the right to kill people, and that's not the way I understand Islam. It's unfortunately it's difficult for them to speak out. It seems there's too much retaliation for anybody who was a Muslim anywhere in the world to speak out against the atrocities that are happening. So that is the real problem.
So when the Muslims break their fast for Ramadan, will some diocesan officials be attending those events? You say that
Yes,
they've been
I'm
invited.
invited. I should be attending. We have, Father Joe Zwasta, who studied in Rome. He got his licentiate in interreligious affairs, so he's been following more closely the Islamic presence in our diocese and creating opportunities for dialogue.
Bishop, thank you very much.
Okay.